Hi, I'm Kenji. I'm a product manager in Chrome. I work on making things load fast.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yusuke from GTech Velocity in Google, helping out partners, everything web.
This talk is about bleeding-edge API designed to help you create user experiences that are seamless, instant, and reliable. There is a lot to cover today, so let's jump right into it. Maybe.
It's coming.
We need to make the loading disappear first, obviously. So we spend a lot of time waiting for things to load or disappear, like on the screen, right? Especially on mobile. Browsing the web doesn't feel particularly delightful compared to the kind of user experience you have on native apps. And there are a few reasons for that, but I think the main one is the way we load websites, generally speaking. It kind of like is sluggish, typically like the user experience that we have on the web. Let's see why that's the case, sorry. So this is a typical user experience that you have on today's web. You click on the link, and then essentially you see this blank page, because the browser is going to fetch the HTML for the main resource for the new navigation. And it can take a while, so you still wait for something to happen, anything. You don't even know is it going to work or not, right? It could just fail. And then eventually, you start to see like things rendering, and you want to use it, but what happens usually is that there are elements on the page that comes late and shift things on the screen, which make it very hard to use, because you tap on something and then you tap on the wrong thing.
Kenji, I think you're absolutely right on this. I wonder if you could deliver experiences like the one that we have in the slide right now. Experiences without wait times, experiences without jumping layouts or rendering states, experiences that feel snappy because they seamlessly transition you to your destination. Kenji, do you think it's a good idea to first walk through the range of options we have when building new user experiences today? I really want to hear a couple of your good metaphors. I really love those.
I'm not sure about good, but we can try, right?
Sure.
All right, so you could choose to focus all your resources into building a native app and deliver a top-notch user experience. But the problem with that approach is that, on average, this is the equivalent of building an experience that only a small subset of your users can afford or need. Installing a native app is a non-trivial request because it is, first of all, time-consuming, but it also requires a high level of trust and commitment, whether it's about storage or enabling a bunch of permissions. So while you could skip on native, you absolutely need a presence on the web, especially if you want to reach more users. And on the web, you have essentially two options: MPA, or multiple page application, and single page application, SPA. Let's have a quick look at SPA first. So to me, going SPA is kind of like building a high-rise. It is complex because you end up rebuilding key features that the browser provides for free, such as history or restoring scrolling position. And shared experience can be nice when you are in the app, but getting there can take a lot of time because of all the code that you need to load upfront. And that's problematic because first impression matters a lot when you're trying to reach new users. And as you build this thing, it kind of falls apart, because if as the size of the SPA increase, it is just too complex. And so the only solution you have is to split this big thing into multiple SPA. And so you're back to square one, where you have to navigate between different user experience. And as we've seen, it's not a good user experience on the web. The last thing is that when we talked to partners, it was clear that for them, an SPA results in a loss of productivity because of the inherent dependencies of a monolithic app. So for instance, you can't just fiddle with things without impacting other teams. And let's look at what MPA has to offer on the other end. To me, going MPA is kind of like building a small town. Each team gets its own house, which means that they can focus on the thing that matters, right? They don't need to reinvent things that the browser provides, for instance, and then can also more freely tweak their product to their needs without worrying of having to impact other teams. But MPA are not without downside, right? It's not perfect. Overall, it is true that MPA tend to result in user experience that are higher friction because everything is a navigation. And as we've seen, it's a rather frustrating user experience.
Kenji talked about our desire of enabling seamless experiences on the web. Seamless sounds very neat, but it might be hard to understand what we actually mean by this. Here's an example from the Android platform. It's called shared element transition. Essentially, the idea is to use an element throughout a state transition to reassure the user that their action has been acknowledged and being acted on.
Great example. Too bad this is only an Android native app, API, right? I'm sure that a lot of you would like to build something like that, especially if you have an API. It's kind of like unachievable today.
Kenji-san, I think I have something for you. It's
Good.
still in the early days, but with the help from the broader community, we think we have found a way to create such experiences. It's called Portals. We gave a teaser during last year's CDS and showed off for Seamless Vision in I/O this year. The feedback from the community has been amazing, and the team has made significant progress for enabling same origin use cases, which will be our focus for this talk. So, Kenji, could you please give us a high-level pitch on what portals are?
Yeah, sure. So let's briefly explain the key concept behind Portal. Portal is all about enabling better navigation on the web. And in the early days, every navigation was done through like simple links like this one, right? But the downside is, with those simple links, it's not super appealing, like it's just like a bunch of like text and words. And also the friction of navigating gets in the way. All right. Then snippets came around, right? It's some sort of like way to make the links more appealing by providing more details and having like a nice visual. But that said, it's not much better. For one, the information that is available there could be out of date. And also, it's still going to trigger this high-friction navigation user experience. All right. And eventually, iframe came around. So because the content is now served by the website you are linking to, the FreshNet concern is not there anymore. But it's still going to trigger a high-friction user navigation. And so it's not that different from what we've seen so far. And this is where Portal come in. As you will see, it's sort of like an iframe, except that you can navigate into it. So I think this is a better explanation of it, right? It's like a frame that you can open and cross over. All right, I think that's enough metaphor for now. Hands on time.
Awesome stuff, Kenji. I like how you framed those things.
See what you did there.
Exactly. So exciting the thing is, Portals for same origin use case is coming soon as an origin trial. Just like any other HTML element, you can use it directly with the HTML tag or from JavaScript. Let's walk through step-by-step what Portals could do. Let's say you have a page, say foo.html, all blue, super nice with this full blue background and having foo.html in the center.
This looks amazing, like just his shirt, like it's, I don't know if you did that on purpose, maybe?
And you also have another page, bar.html, which is pretty similar to foo.html, but having a different color and a different URL.
I should have wear some kind of like yellow thing, right?
Exactly. I know these are like looking pretty beautiful. We'll use these two pages to see what Portals could do. You would first want to check if your browser supports Portals. As you all know, progressive enhancement is very important because we don't want to break any experience in non-supported browsers. You can check if HTML portal element is in the global window object to achieve this. Next, let's create a portal element by document.createElement, setting the source attribute as bar.html, and adding some styles of your own. And lastly, adding the element to the document, and boom, you'll see bar.html embedded in a page.
Fantastic. This is like never seen before.
Yeah, it looks amazing, right? You can actually check in DevTools that another document is rendered inside the portal element. In this case, I added width 100%, height 100%, transform scale, and a fixed position, so it looks just like the full document is embedded in the page. But you can style your portal element as you like.
Isn't it exciting? You can now embed other documents in a document? That sounds a little bit like familiar.
Yes, but what really gets exciting with Portals is that it has this powerful activate function built in. This function will let you navigate into the already rendered page inside the portal element. Let's see it in action. I'll then now add an on-click listener to the portal and see if I could activate the portal when the user taps on the element. And what you get is this. The top-level window navigation happens, and you magically navigate into the portal. It's an instant navigation experience. Like I mentioned, this is a top-level window navigation, so the URL correctly switches to the activated page. I mean, keeping the URL right is always good when you work with the web. So as you can see, Portals really makes the loading experience disappear. You don't need to wait for the page to render anymore because it's already rendered inside the portal.
Thanks, Yusuke. I'm really impressed because you did make loading disappear. Like, round of applause. However, like on a second thought, like this is super confusing because it goes too fast. I mean, it's kind of like one of those movies where they quickly like shift to a different scene and you lose the plot. Like, look at the target experience, that this is so much easier to understand.
I'm totally agree with that. The good news is Portal does enable the creation of those intuitive and delightful user experiences, but you have to put some efforts to it. I think this is preferable because a platform shouldn't be in the business of defining rigid user experiences. It should empower you to design what works best for your product and your users.
Cool. I really like this concept of like bring your own animation. Makes a lot of sense.
So what we can do better is first embed the Portal element, and when the user taps on the element, don't activate just yet and start animating the portal. In this case, let's try to bring back the scale to 100%. Once the portal element covers the full screen, and by the way, you can see that the URL is still at foo.html at this point. And lastly, activate the portal. The instant top-level navigation happens, and the user has now landed to bar.html. Like I mentioned, portals has nothing to do with animation, but you can always animate the portal to make the transition smooth. You could be using keyframes or JavaScript to move around the element, but in this case, let's say we animated the element with CSS transitions. The fancy animation function we have here could be something like changing the transform scale, translate X, translate Y, and also setting the transition duration to 400 milliseconds. The animation could look something like this. Very smooth. When the CSS transition completes, there will be a transition end event being fired. Listen to that event and then activate.
And voila, you now have a smooth transition despite being an MPA. That's pretty cool. But, I mean, yeah, it does look much better. But what if I don't want my users to navigate away?
Don't want to force the users to navigate away. Kenji, I don't know. I think you're asking too much.
Sorry, I really can't help it, but I swear this is going to be useful. So can we do something about that?
OK. Yeah, so the good news is you can do that easily with portals, yes. Another powerful API the element provides is adopt predecessor. As you can tell from the name, after activating the portal, you will be able to reuse the predecessor, which would be the previous page instance. Let's see how this works. First of all, you can listen to the portal activate event inside the portal embedded document to check if the page was activated. This event is very useful if you have something you want to do right after the activation, like changing the UI and such. And the most exciting piece is that the event comes with this .predecessor function, which you can use to retrieve the previous page as a portal element with all the UI and the JavaScript states available. And from here on, you can add it to the document and use it like any other portal. What I built is something like this. Bar adapting foo as a predecessor, and then activate. Foo adapting bar as a predecessor, and then activate. It's kind of like this cat, like spinning back and forth, endless loop.
That's very cute, but there are more practical ways to use this thing, so let's have a look. Like this example from Yahoo, they are using a predecessor to smooth out the experience of checking breaking news. When a news story breaks, it's very likely that you were doing something else. And so having you navigate away from whatever you were doing would be a pretty bad user experience. But in that case, by using Portal and add predecessor, you can keep the context around so that user knows that whatever they were doing is still there, and so they can quickly go back to it. You see, I told you it would be useful.
Very exciting stuff. While Portals is a powerful API, I would also want to point out some of the tips when using Portals. First of all, as we mentioned, Portal does not come with any animation features by default, which would also mean that it's your responsibility to maintain the 60 FPS animation. As Uncle Paul has been saying many times, stick to changing transition opacity, use will change to give a browser hint, and if you're directly animating using JavaScript, use request animation frame. Next, accessibility. In time for the origin trial, we want to make sure the accessibility works fine and the semantics works fine for portals. Also, from some people prefer reduced motion settings, so please consider using the prefers reduced motion media query to customize the animation. In this case, when the user prefers reduced motion, the transform transition that moves the elements around would be nearly instant. Last but not least, and I cannot emphasize this more, but again, while portals is a powerful element, avoid overloading the page with portals. What you can do here is try loading a new portal based on user interaction and interest. something like using the intersection observer to lazily load a portal, or dynamically creating a portal on user interaction, initially immediately showing a skeleton UI while the loading completes.
All right. If there is any lesson to take from this overview of portals, is that portal is by design a very simple API, because we don't want to get in the way of your creativity. And so to give you some ideas of what you could do with portals, we got some UX patterns and a bunch of demos from partners to show off. Let's start with this pattern that we talked about last year at CDS, but it's still a good one. This works really well when you know where the user is going to go next. And so this is something that we built in collaboration with Hatena. As you can see, it's a comic viewer reader. And the next chapter is pre-rendered right there on the last page. And so you can seamlessly transition the user to the next chapter. And this is an MPA, right? It's not an SPA. This is another exploration done by Farfetch, an online luxury fashion retail platform based in the UK.
Got that right.
Got that right, yeah. Their goal was to use Polo to smooth out the navigation on their inspirational content page. They are also using a predecessor to the end of the whole sequence to end the swiping navigation back to where the user started. All right, second UX pattern that we have, this is designed to help users find more quickly the item that they want among many. What goes on here at a high level is that there is a portal that is off-screen, and it renders a skeleton UI. And when the user decides to check one item, the main page is sending the information that the portal needs to complete the view. And an animation is started, and hopefully by the end of which, everything is in place. It's pretty a good user experience. All right. And so this was just a UX pattern that Yusuke actually built, but we have partners that use that to create something interesting. So this one, done by Yahoo Japan PayPay Mall team. You can see it's a different zoom in, zoom out animation. It's very fancy.
Once the user taps on an item, they are dynamically creating a portal off screen. While the portal loads, immediately animating an existing image and showing a skeleton UI of the product detail page. After the portal loading completes, activate. They are actually providing same types of experience in their native apps, but it's really nice to see this smooth transition on the web as well. So awesome. Kenji, do we have room for one more UX pattern?
It's going to be tight, but maybe we can give it a shot.
Cool. This one is about providing a more intuitive, faster way of consuming content, and I call it speed browsing.
Wow, you have a trademark already?
Yes, we got that right. Like the one that we are showing on the slides, as your user reaches the end of the page, you can use portals to pre-render the next page, have it peek from the bottom so that the user can drag it over to complete the navigation. In this exploration, eBay is experimenting portals to help their customers quickly browse through different products. The current user experience without portals involves a lot of back and forth between the product detail page and the search results page. In other words, without portals, you end up loading and rendering a lot more things, which results in frustrating experience. Yahoo Japan News built a whole new experience from scratch. This is a stack of highly visual cards that the user can swipe through. Also combined with the ability to seamlessly deep dive into the article itself. And all of these screens are separate pages, and yet there's absolutely no loading to be seen. Very smooth, great experience, and something very new to the web. The exciting part is Yahoo Japan News has published the prototype as their lab experiment, and you can experience their portals implementation from the link shown on the screen. Of course, it's still in the early stage, but we think this new experience has a strong value proposition regarding overall UX.
All right, we also received a quote from the CTO of Yahoo Japan, which I'm super excited about because it does show that there is a need for an API like this. Even companies with plenty of resources and skill still prefer using MPA despite all the downsides we talked about. And so having Portal as part of the web platform to smooth out the user experience is super useful. So Portal will allow us to improve the user experience thanks to the smooth transition between web pages, even on our MPA architecture. And the last part is the one I'm super excited about. In addition, not only engineers, but also designers could use Portals effectively. So I really feel that Portals is a tool that helps democratize seamless transition to everyone, and we'd love to see what you can come up with and your feedback on this API. There is a lot more examples we could show off, but we will be definitely running out of time. So thanks to all our early partners for the amazing feedback we got so far and building inspiring experience. Thank you.
I mean, this is great. Can we wrap up our session now?
I wish, but not quite. As you've seen, it's true that you can use Parallel to build very compelling user experience, but is it really enough?
What do you mean by that?
The problem with merely building great user experience is that there is no guarantee that your users are going to find them. It takes a lot of efforts to try something new, especially when you already have your own preference about how you want to use your time, for instance. And so what do you do in that case? Well, essentially, you can do two things. Number one, lower the amount of effort it takes for people to try something new. And number two, lower the amount of effort it takes for someone to try something new, ideally to zero, right? Let's now look at a few more proposals and ongoing efforts that we have that are meant to help on this front. All right, so first, let's start with a way to make an initial navigation instant. Yusuke, what if by the time you went on your Japanese commute, you already have like a whole bunch of content available on your device? I think people talked about it just before.
Yeah, that actually solves most of my problems.
Yeah, OK. So good news is there's this new API called periodic background sync, which is meant to solve that issue. And so not only would the experience be instant, but it would also be readable, like connection, like it doesn't really matter anymore because it's already on the device. So let's see what this could mean in practice. So this is an exploration done by Ghana, by Times Internet. Ghana is the largest music streaming service in India. What's interesting here is that India is a challenging market, in particular because data has become a lot more affordable. The infrastructure has trouble to keep up with the demand. And so depending on the time of the day, you can end up on a very slow connection. And so Ghana wants to use PBS to smooth out the experience. They can fetch content ahead of time so that they don't have to worry about hitting like a bad connection through the day. This is another example from Hatena. They want to use periodic background sync to proactively prefetch the latest edition of a user's favorite manga or magazines. And those can be very large, like 100 megs at a time. The other thing that's important to know, and maybe that's a surprise for a lot of people, is that in Japan, more than half of the subscribers only have 3 gigabytes of data per month. After that, they get like throttled 2G, which is a very bad user experience. I've been there. You've been there too, right?
Yeah, for about 3 years, yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea is that you can use PBS when you are at home on Wi-Fi to download this like heavy content so that when you're on the commute, everything is there. Is that amazing?
Yeah, this is exactly a feature I wanted. I mean, I love manga, and it'll be a great time to like kill my commute time.
All right. Can you run us through the API, Yusuke?
Sure, definitely. With PBS, you'll be able to register a sync event for your service worker. You can specify your own tag name, just like the background sync. In this case, the sample code is registering sync amazing cats event, which is very nice. And there's also a min interval option where we can define the minimum duration between each of the sync. And once the event is registered, the browser will regularly fire a periodic sync event to the service worker. You could then run your own logic to sync your, such as the, oh, something went wrong, such as the web resources and cache storage or application settings in your IndexedDB. Taking the min interval option into account, the frequency of the sync event depends on how frequently the user engages with your website. In Chrome, we are reserving PBS for installed apps, aka installed PWAs. When the event triggers, please be mindful of the user environment, for example, storage and data saving options. Some APIs that might help you understand if it's a good time to run the sync logic is Navigator connection save data to see if it's in a data saver mode, and Storage API to estimate the available storage. Cool. So we now have a way to download contents ahead of time and also make the transition smooth with portals. Kenji, I think we're good for today.
You know me, right? I always want more. So we're not quite done, right? I think it's great that we can have those websites like proactively fetch content ahead of time and deliver like an instant, reliable, like great user experience. But there is something missing. The problem is that if all of that work is done and no one notices, what's the point, right? It's actually wasteful. But to me, this feels like a discovery opportunity. And so we do understand that building like great user experience takes a lot of efforts. And so we've been thinking of ways to reward that effort. In particular, we think we can help you re-engage with your users or find new users. And so more concretely, this is like early exploration. But what you're looking at right now are ways for us to surface content that's available on the device in the Chrome downloads page and also in the Chrome new tab page. So we are still exploring with that, but that's one of the ways through which we want to help users identify that there is something interesting on their device. But to make this work, we'll need your help, right? Only you know what's available on the device and how to best present it. And so the good news is there is an early proposal called content indexing. And so Yusuke is going to help to explain how that works.
Sure. So the prerequisite for using the content indexing API is to ensure that your web app uses a service worker, and that at least a subset of your URLs can be navigated to while offline. And please don't get confused. Content indexing API is not a new storage mechanism. You can keep on using cache storage for that. It's a simple way of indexing content that is available on the device. Let's look into the basics. You can add URLs and associated metadata to the index with a newly exposed index.add function in the service worker registration interface. For details, you need to add a unique ID and the launch URL, which has to work offline, and some other metadata, which the browser can use to show a list of readily available content to the user. You might want to provide a Save for Later button to save and index a piece of content, or you might want to add the contents automatically when a periodic background sync event fires. In addition, the API provides ways to list and delete the entries in the index so that you can keep the index up to date. The API will be available as an origin trial soon from Chrome 80, and we are waiting for your feedback.
All right, having a collection of content ready to go is quite convenient, but I think we can take it not further, hopefully in the 3 minutes that we have left. So what if we could have, for instance, a self-contained piece of content or apps that we could share and distribute, like instead of just having links? This will allow your user to find, or discover, obtain, or enjoy your content in so many interesting ways. So for a self-contained piece of content or app to exist, there needs to be a way to package all the resources that thing needs in a convenient and disputable format.
With the help from the community, we've been working on specifying and implementing such a format. For a long time, we have been using the term bundled HTTP exchanges.
That's quite a mouthful.
Honestly speaking, yes. So we decided to name it Web Bundle.
That's really nice. I like it.
As the new name implies, it's designed for the web and allows you to bundle any resources into one convenient file, which you can serve over the wire or even share with any peer-to-peer protocol.
That sounds like some sort of zip archive for the web.
That's actually one way to see it. Let's see what we have so far. We now have a CLI to easily build a bundle. Since it's built with Golang, you would want to use go-get to first install the command line tools. The command gem bundle gives you many ways to bundle up web resources, but I personally feel the har option is really convenient because it just takes the har file as an input to produce a web bundle. It's super easy. We are also exploring with JavaScript implementation for web bundles as well. We just released the very first draft as an NPM module called WBN. We are still in the middle of brushing up the library. We hope that you will be able to integrate this module into your build pipeline so that you could easily bundle up your content.
All right, as I said, a distribution format enables interesting use case. In this example, you can see that I can share with a friend this amazing game called Prox, which I have in a web bundle format. And the thing is, I can do that without internet. I just need to use a file transfer app, and it just works. I can share it with my friend without any internet. I can be on a plane, London subway, or even Jake's Archibald famous Li-Fi toilet, if you know what I mean. It just works. One more use case I'm excited about, faster loading.
Oh, Kenji, you're so much obsessed with fast.
I know. So the trick is, because everything is on the device, a web bundle will offer a much faster user experience. Let's do a match. On the left, you have web bundle, and on the right, you have web. Ready? Fight. Let's see. Done. I mean, there is no picture, right? It's web bundle wins. Amazing.
Just like Kenji, I'm very excited about this feature, but you really have to try it yourself. The good news is that we added this USB type D, yes, type Dino in your strap bag, and it contains sample web bundles and instructions. You can play around with the full feature of Prox, web.dev, and Scoosh wherever you are, no matter your network condition, or even on your flight back to your hometown after CDS.
All right, to close, we've talked about 4 APIs today. The first one, Portal, which is designed to enable instant and seamless navigation. This is going to be available soon in an origin trial for the same origin use case, and we are seeing tremendous support from the web developers. Your interest in feedback is going to help us engage with other browser vendors, because so far we've got no signal from them, so it's going to be useful. All right, next one. Periodic background sync. This is designed to help get content ahead of time on the device so that you don't have to worry about connection. This is already available in an origin trial. We have great interest from web developers, and there is some work to do with other browser vendors. Content indexing. This one is about surfacing the content that is available on the device, and it's going to be available in an origin trial soon. This is brand new. We want to hear from you, so please try it out. Let us know if it works for you or not. And last but not least, web bundles. So this is a convenient format to enable discovery and distribution. This is bleeding edge. It's only available behind an experimental flag. There is some early interest from web developers, and some of the other browser vendors are a bit concerned, but that tend to be for a set of use cases that we didn't talk about today. If you want to learn more, come to talk to me later.
Cool. Finally, we made it to the end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're excited about these new APIs. Kenji.
Thank you all. Please check this link for more details and pointer.